Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a operation using the Arma 3 Eden editor from start to finish, including getting it put up on the server. We will not be dealing with any scripts today, and we're just going to be from start to finish, any and all details. The things that you're going to be needing for this can all be found in S3 mission references. You're going to be needing, just to start, the love handle spawn composition and PBO manager. As I said, both of these can be found in the S3 mission references channels. Now, for this lesson, we are going to be having just a baseline mission. I'm going to be getting this mission from ChatGPT. ChatGPT can make just run-of-the-mill basic missions for you, at least the ideas. The outboard, of course, still has to be made, but we can at least go and check out what that looks like. Okay, this is what ChatGPT gave me. The prompt, all that I gave it, I need a mission idea for Arma 3. This is what it gives me. Of course, it's not going to be giving me a Halo-themed operation. You're going to have to change it, fill in the blanks here. In this case, it says NATO. This would be the UNSC. Form it to what you need. But this is just a basic example. Me personally, I would like to do something a little more original, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be using this. A UNSC reconnaissance team has discovered that a rogue paramilitary faction is preparing to launch a ballistic missile from an occupied island. The team must infiltrate, sabotage the launch facilities, and extract before enemy reinforcements arrive. Good basis for just a standard op. It lacks heavily on the why we are properly there or why we should care. Where's this ballistic missile going? We can expand upon that when we write the outboard. In reality, we are doing this a little bit backwards. Usually for an idea, you base the mission off of the idea, but in this case, we are making the mission first before writing the outboard because we are referencing off of already known information. You would do this if you're basing your op off of a real, IRL event that you're turning into Halo theme. In this case, that's what we're doing here. If this was a idea that I came up with off the top of my head, I would make the outboard first. But we're referencing here. I'm just going to be using this. Okay, we're back on Arma. The map that I chose for this is the Molden 2035 map. Considering that it said island, I thought this is a really good island map. Works well. Its frames are fantastic. So I think this will work really, really well. First step is I want to decide where our troops are inserting from. In this case, this will be using the love handle composition. You can find that by going to compositions. Here you can find multiple larger groups of infantry. We're not too interested in that. We want to come over here to custom. And under UNSC, you will find the love handle composition. When you download this, you will find it here. I have other compositions. Don't worry about that. Love handle composition. I think I want to give them a little bit of breathing room from the AA. I am thinking that far ahead as to where I'm going to be putting the AA, which I can already tell you right now is going to be at the airport area. So to give aviation and the troops a little bit of breathing room, I'm going to be specifically putting the love handle as far away from that as possible and behind these large mountain ranges right here. I'm going to be taking the love handle composition through the use of middle mouse click. I can move my camera, my Zeus camera around as indicated on the map, and now I'm over here. So what you want to be doing is up here at the toggle vertical mode and toggle surface snapping. You want to turn both of these off when dealing with compositions. If you don't, it tends to it deals with props pretty well, but modules and things like that kind of need to be in the air. This is suspended in the air. If you spawn in compositions without those two things off, it does tend to change and manipulate the composition. Things aren't used, things might not be where they're supposed to be, and you have triggers and stuff like that that should be there that aren't there. They're at sea level. So with both of those off, I'm going to be taking the composition, and I kind of just want to put it right here at the tip of this peninsula right here. So as you can see, it has been spawned successfully. I want it to be more in line, or perpendicular, I should say, with the island. So what we can do here is we want to be facing dead east. Using shift left click drag, you turn on the rotation widget, and I want to point that dead in the direction that I want it to face, which is east in this case. It's a little slanted, but it is kind of in line. It makes my OCD happy. It's kind of perpendicular, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it is kind of nicely in line with the peninsula. I like it. Okay, now that we have the ship put down, let's get started on the enemy fortification. This is going to be a very basic mission, and I'll also probably say this probably wouldn't be up to a full Thursday or Friday op standard. I'm going to be making this as if it was just like a basic side op, something that you could run, any day of the week. Max amount of players, about 8 people. All right, so this is going to be pretty small. I already said that I'm going to be using the airport as my full-blown enemy stronghold. So with the use of middle mouse wheel click, we can move the camera over there, go out of map. Here's the airport. In terms of our ICBM, what I'm going to be using is under Op4, you go to CSAT. You want single objects, not compositions. CSAT, artillery, and we do have the Pooks artillery mod, so in this sense I'm going to be using a Scud missile, which, considering that this is like a smaller paramilitary group, sure, it's Halo and it's 500 years out of date, but in my mind that is what would make sense for just kind of having them have it around. You could put in some lore context that it might have been retrofitted with some newer technology, but ultimately it's something that they just kind of found, smuggled, whatever. When placing a vehicle, you can unclick this, place vehicle with crew. If it's unclicked, it will have no crew in it when it is spawned, which is what we want, because during the mission we don't want this thing actually with people in it, because then they might drive around and mess things up. We want this to effectively just be a prop. So I want to hide this inside of this shed. Now that we're dealing with props on the ground, we can actually turn back on vertical mode and surface snapping. And when manipulating things up and down through the use of Alt and left click, it will turn on a Z-axis kind of widget. When you see those two lines appear right there, you can know that your vehicle or prop is actually flush with the ground, and that's what surface snapping actually does, in which it makes it to where it snaps to the ground a lot easier. If we were to turn both of these on, both of these off, then you can actually see that the ground snapping with both of them off, it just goes through the ground. Turn it both on, can't go through the ground, and it is level with the ground. Okay, with that done, I need to kind of make this more Halo themed airfield. So I'm going to be going around putting down some extra towers, some defenses, some optray assets, make it kind of more fit the theme of what we would come to expect from a Halo operation. Okay, in this case, I'm going to be using prefabricated defensive positions just for ease and quickness. We're not going to get super custom with this, considering that, as I said, I'm making this more for a smaller group side op. So real easy, we can come to compositions, you go to props, and here you will have a bunch of options under cup. We want cup military, and we're going to be using cup military desert because this is more of a Mediterranean arid, semi-arid kind of environment, and I think desert will work fine here. We have a large selection of pre-made prop compositions. So in this case, I want to probably try, this is what I'm looking for. These pre-made compositions right here. Cargo towers, all these cargo tower compositions right here are actually pretty fantastic. I'm just going to pick number 6, and you can just put it down. We don't want to worry about turning off the vertical mode and surface snapping for these compositions, considering that they will be on the ground. The reason why we wanted to do that for the love handle is because it's in the air. But if you're just spawning it on the ground, it's best to have both of those enabled. So here we have our first tower composition. Super easy. There will need to be some optimization that you want to do with this, but I'll get to that later. So I'm going to just be going around, plopping these around, and seeing just kind of how I feel about the overall feel of it. Okay, so we got some basic kind of perimeter defenses going here. I didn't want to put too many down just because this base already has plenty of tiny crevices and defendable positions that we can use already. There doesn't have to be a lot. Now, here comes the Halo vacation for this airfield. So I'm going to be going to just objects. We're still in props. There's a lot here. I recommend that you get yourself orientated with all this stuff. There's a lot of cool kit bashing things that you can do with all these props, and just really cool things that if you weren't to look and experiment with, you would never actually know the potential of them, like mobile homes, for example. But we ain't playing with those right now. So in this case, we're going to be doing optray objects. What I want to do, there's a search bar, and I'm just going to type in tower because I just already know that they're called towers. So we know under optray objects, military, we have some themed towers here. We're going to be using the desert towers, and I'm just going to put this one right here. Looks fine. I'm going to rotate it, shift left click, drag it in the direction that you want to rotate it. I think it looks quite at home right there. And we can probably do another one right here. One thing I do like to do with both small and big operations like this is I do like to make a natural weakness inside of my fortified areas. In this case, I'm probably going to heavily fortify the southern direction of this base, but probably maybe not fortify at all the north or northwest, the northwest or just westernly direction of this base. In fact, I just saw an opportunity here. This radio station right here is kind of a really nice natural defense point. So I would say, my tactician brain going here, this would be a fortified position. I wouldn't, in op, I would never fortify this the whole time in operation. I would really only fortify it if players were going here. But that's something that I can think about. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to put any props there for the sake of optimizing the mission and making sure that the frame rate is good. But what I can say is I know this radio tower is here now. So if they come up to this hill, I'm going to at least not deny them this vertical position, but I am going to make them fight for it. And then they're going to have a dilemma of, do we want to break our concealment if they still have concealment at that point? Or do we want to fight this and then have this advantage, but at the cost of our concealment? And there's a bunch of things that can go on here. They can be using suppressors. They can have a really nice execution. And as a Zeus, I would have to say that was fair. The enemy base, the base down below doesn't know that the fighting happened here. So I'm going to allow them to have this. And it keeps things fair, fresh, and it keeps the enjoyment of the players. But I know that this radio station is here, so I'm going to say this is at most the fortifications that we're going to have to the west of the base, but it's not going to be in the base. So back to the base, we have 2 towers, basic fortifications, and we have our objective right here. So what I want to do now is I want to decide my anti-air options for this mission, which in this case I'm going to be using only 2, considering that this is going to be a side op mission. The reason why I want anti-air in the first place is I want to deny them the option of just landing in the airfield. So what I'm going to be doing, we're in objects, we're going to go to op 4, and we are going to find the 2 assets. One is called the Buzzsaw, which is this. It's the M48 Buzzsaw Sea-Whiz. We don't need a fancy platform or anything like that for it. I don't want to put this, though, on anything that I don't want to get blown up, because naturally aviation will want to target this, so then they can have open airspace over the airfield. Make sure that before you put it down, you re-enable place vehicle with crew. If I wouldn't, there wouldn't be anybody inside of it to operate it. So you'd have an empty Sea-Whiz at this point. What I like to do in these cases, this tower is really cool. And this actually, in my experience, I have found has a very nice kind of area using the shift left click to rotate rotate widget, and then I just kind of I put it where I want it to be. Make sure not to have it clipping into any objects, or else it will get flung into space. There you go. And that should be fine right there. And it looks at home. And that's kind of the point. It looks at home right there. I don't care if this tower is hit. There's not going to be anything inside of it. So I'm happy with it there. I usually put them on top of these drums right here, but considering that it's right next to the objective, and I don't want the objective to get blown up, because, say, for reasons, if it gets blown up, a nuclear explosion will go off. We don't want that to happen anywhere. So don't put your AA right next to it, so then it doesn't cause that problem. And next up, we want to put down one missile SAM site, the M92 Bolt SAM. And I'm going to find a nice place that I want to put this. I do like these, but for the purposes of education, what I want to do is I'm going to go over to props. I'm going to do platform, and where are they? Ah, yes. Military cargo platforms. These things are awesome. You just put them down. They're a nice platform. Gives you some protection from the bottom. And then we go back to our op4. Type in bolt. We get our bolt. And there you go. It's right at home. And it's just a nice little platform. It allows you, doing AA that way, allows you to just kind of put it wherever you want it, and it makes sense. And these platforms can also do a ton of other cool stuff. I won't go into it now, but if you double click on it and go into the edit menu here, you can see at the bottom, you can move the legs, you can rotate the panels, you can hide the panels to make a bigger platform. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with these props. Okay, so we have our basic base here. Notice that the only AI that I have put down is AA. That is an optimization. We do not, unless there's scripts attached to it, which, as I said, we're not going to be doing any scripts. But if there were scripts attached to it, that is the only reason why you would pre-place an AI in a mission. You do not want to put a ton of AI down initially in Eden, considering that anything that is in Eden has to be processed by the server. But if it's put down in Zeus during the mission, it's then having to be processed, of course, still by the server, but primarily all of it is being hosted on your machine. Think of it kind of like that. So it's better to have it down in Zeus rather than in Eden for the sake of the server. It's a night and day difference. Now we're going to be doing a little bit of optimization in regards to helping the server. Ultimately, we're going to be turning off the simulation for a bunch of stuff. What does that mean? I'll show you. We have all these objects here, and you can see each object has a tiny yellow square associated with it. In this case, what we're going to do, click and drag, select all of this, right? What we want to do primarily first is find the yellow square that corresponds with the cargo tower. Using Control left click, we deselect the tower. You can actually see in the top left corner, you can see military cargo tower brown has been deselected. All of these here indicate that they are selected. And then what you want to do is you want to right click on any object and go to attributes. And then in the edit menu, under object special states, you will find these options. Enable dynamic simulation, don't use that. Enable simulation, we are going to be turning that off. Simple objects, we can turn that on. It's kind of a marginal effect, but it helps nonetheless. And that's primarily all that we really want to touch. Anything that can be a simple object, make it a simple object, and anything that can be desimulated, do desimulate it. What does turning off the simulation of an object do? Every single object is affected by gravity. So say if it's an object that can be moved or affected by any sort of inertia, say a warthog runs into it and it and that object gets knocked over, that is determined by simulation. Gravity is determined by simulation. So by turning off simulation, it disables the object's ability to move either left or right, up and down. And that really helps the server, because the server, in this case, if it were on, if the simulation was on, would have to be calculating those factors constantly. But considering everything we have here at this base, we don't want to move like these pallets. Some props aren't even really modeled to move. So sometimes simulation is one of those things that you don't really need to worry about with some props. But if the prop doesn't have a working door, that's why we deselected the cargo tower, because it has doors. If you desimulate anything with an openable door, it will make the door not open. It will not work. This tower has doors, and we want the players to have the option to enter it. But naturally, it being an anchored object, it's not going to be moving left or right, up or down. So we don't have to worry about it being manipulated in that way. But I don't know if these pallets are going to move. I don't know if the random piece of garbage on the ground is going to move. So anything that doesn't have a door, it is best to desimulate it, and then you don't have to worry about if it will, as long as it doesn't have a door. So we press OK, and as you can see here, some objects here, in the case of this pallet right here, right next to the yellow square that indicates this prop pallets, you will see a little red diamond indicating that is to indicate that it is desimulated. If you see a prop like this in which the square has turned gray, that is to indicate that it is a simple object. What is a simple object? Simple object is any prop that can be a simple object is effectively you saying this object is a map object now. So inside of Zeus, it will no longer be manipulable. It won't be editable. It will just be there. It is effectively one with the map as soon as you save and format the mission. This right now is a map object, unless I specify otherwise, but come mission time and it's up on the server, that will be treated as a map asset, and the server will go, that's a map asset, I don't even need to worry about that anymore. So we did it for this object, or that composition, I should say. We did it for that composition. We can do the same here. Go like that, find the cargo tower, and I'm going to shift left click, cargo tower deselected. I'm going to right click, attributes, disable simple objects, and just like that, already I've been Zeusing long enough to know that that is what you want. It is really a night and day difference. So the tower is still simulated. As you can see, there's no red diamond or anything like that, but everything else around it has a red diamond. If this was even a bigger op and not a side op, I would actually go in and delete some of these assets, which you can delete anything. You don't even have to select it. You can delete anything by pressing the delete key on your keyboard, and it will just delete the object. But everything here other than the tower is desimulated, and whatever can be a simple object is a simple object. Little word of advice though, sometimes you don't always want something to be a simple object, and desimulating is all that you want to do, considering that if it were a larger operation and there was more phase lines to it, like say if I had objects like all the way over here, what you can do during the mission is once the players have passed that phase line and they've done everything over there, you can actually go back behind them and delete all of those assets after they've come around. But if those assets are simple objects, then you can't just flat out delete them. So that's just a little bit of thinking ahead that you can do. As you can see here though, for this composition, there's nothing with a door. We don't have to worry about anything. So we can just select the whole thing, right click, attributes, special states, desimulate, simple objects on, and now this whole thing is desimulated. Anything that can be a simple object is a simple object. We can go on. These towers, even though they have ladders, if you desimulate them, the ladder will still work. So we will just select both of them, right click, special edit, special states, desimulate. We can even turn them to simple objects. Over here, we want to just the cargo tower, double click on the cargo tower, enable simulation, turn that off, and boom. We now have this whole airfield and its defenses desimulated, optimized. What I will say, do not, if it's something like a Bolt or SAM, if it's a vehicle, if it's something that a player can drive, use, shoot, turn, anything like that, if it is a enterable object, do not desimulate it. That's why I didn't desim any of the AA, because if I were to desimulate it, though the objects at that point would be not usable at all. They won't turn, they won't engage, they effectively get turned into props. I don't want them to be turned into props. And that's also why I didn't desimulate this, is because technically it's a vehicle and I want to give the players the freedom of doing whatever they want to it. So say if they want to make it target itself and then they blow up the whole airfield or something like that, I want to give them that option as to drive it out and use it that way if they want to, for whatever reason. But it's a side op, it's for fun. If that's something that they want to do and target themselves with an ICBM, go ahead. So that I didn't desimulate that for that reason. If I did, the vehicle would be enterable, but it wouldn't be able to move, and actually the player would be stuck inside of it because they can't get out of it because it's desimmed. But oddly enough, they can get in it, which is silly. So this operation is pretty much all but done. To recap, we have a mission in which a paramilitary faction has an ICBM and they're going to launch it who knows where. We can decide that inside of the op board to give a little reason why, either why they're doing it or why we're here. We are on a island map of Malden 3035 as the ChatGPT suggestion said was the prompt. We put down the love handle using a composition. As I said, the two things that you would need is the love handle spawn composition and PBO manager. We got the love handle spawn composition. We put it down. Make sure to disable toggle vertical mode and surface snapping when putting it down to avoid any accidentals. And we put it there and we made it face west by manipulating it with shift left click, dragging it in that direction. From there, we then went to the airport, put down some basic fortifications, decided that the radio tower was going to be an unmarked strong point to dissuade the players from using the high ground, or at least making them fight for it. Now what we want to do is we want to mark our objectives, which is easy enough, which in this case you would want to put more detail in it than this for a main operation, but in this case, to mark the objective, we go over here, we go to markers, and we just go to icons. I prefer to use just the standard military. That's the default that opens up. You have this marker, you put it down, you now double click on it, it will open up the edit menu for it. I prefer to use op4 red to indicate just proper op4 objectives. And then from there, you can add text to it in this text display option, and we can just call it, type obj ICBM, and nothing else needs to be changed. I press OK, and now that is indicated on the map itself. If I wanted to indicate that, like, we don't know specifically where the ICBM is, what we can do is we can take this area marker and we use an ellipsis. We just put that in the center of the objective. Now this marker can be a little hard to select now that it's on top of the other, and it's also kind of not in the center of that. So I'm going to, okay, so we actually got it. Put that more in the center, that's fine. but sometimes it can also be hard to double click. It sometimes flops between the two, so you can actually go up here to the top left, find the thing that you have selected, and you can actually double click it up here, and it will reopen the edit menu. So for this, we can actually change the size. This is the overall area size of the circle, and I'm just going to make it 100 by 100 meters, and boom. So the objective is there. It's a smaller area. If this was a larger operation with more people, I would say, make it the whole area of the airfield. But in this case, we just want to be like, hey, it's in this general area. So now we can say, hey, the ICBM is in this kind of general area. I'm also going to make, if you bring down the alpha a little bit, it will make it more transparent. So it is easier to see through on the map, and it doesn't necessarily block the ICBM objective marker. So this is now there. Within the spawn composition for the love handle, we already have our love handle marker indicator, so we don't need to change anything like that. So for the most part, this side op is ready to go. But there's still some things that we need to do, and these things you cannot forget, or else it will mess up a ton of stuff with your mission. Up here in the top left, we have these scenario, edit, view, attributes, tools, settings, play, help, and about, even whatever. Up here in attributes, we want to click. We want to go to multiplayer. This is the multiplayer settings for the mission, right? For here with respawns, if this is not enabled, you will not be able to respawn. We want to be able to respawn, of course. We want to be able to respawn on every single mission, just in case of armas and stuff like that. So, instead of being disabled, we want to move to respawn on custom positions, which will allow these respawn positions to work. Those are our custom positions. So we want those to be able to work, so we turn on respawn. Oh, that's the weather. If you want to change the weather, it's under environment, and you just have full control of the weather all the way to the wind speed and direction if you're interested. But no, we're in multiplayer. Respawn on custom. Oh, my apologies. It was custom position of death. We don't want that. We want respawn on custom positions. Custom position. If we wanted position of death, then they would just respawn on their dead body, which isn't the worst, but it isn't ideal because we want everyone to respawn back on the ship. So respawning on custom position puts them back on the ship rather than on their dead body. It does help if you put on a little bit of a spawn delay. It gives the game a little bit of a breather to help make the... It keeps any funny stuff from happening. It gives it a little bit of a breather. You don't necessarily have to, but if you want to, you can also disable AI, which will disable all options in the spawn menu for AI to spawn with you, I guess is the best way that I could put it. You can always disable that, but 99% of the time that is automatically disabled on the server. So you don't need to worry about that. So as it stands right now on the edit multiplayer, we have respawn on custom positions, and we have a spawn timer, and also, I almost forgot about this, select respawn position. That allows you to also, during the mission, put down other respawn locations, in which, say, if you wanted to give them like a forward respawn point, you can do that inside of Zeus very easily. So we have that selected as well. You don't necessarily have to, but it really helps both the server know more information and just helps any option that you may want to do inside of the mission. So we have respawn on custom position, select respawn position, a 5-second delay and the option of disabling any AI within our spawn composition. So now you just press OK. And if you even wanted to go as far as to test the mission, you would go over here to play. You will play in multiplayer, which will set up a kind of like a computer side server, effectively a LAN server, and it helps with things. So here now you can see we have all of our spawn compositions because we set everything up right. We see it all here. To test out, I'm going to be going into a Zeus slot. We go into here, get a little bit of that. That always happens. Don't worry about it. Sometimes mods conflict with each other. If you see errors like that, very common. Don't worry about it. Continue. Here's our little spawn buffer spawn. We're in the mission. We're on the ship primarily. Everything's here. And goodness, excuse me, I am a little under the weather. We're on the hangar. If we press our Zeus key, we can go into our Zeus camera. Everything's here. The objective markers here. A lot of the controls from Eden do transfer over to Zeus, so keep that in mind. Everything's here. We have our Sea-Wiz bolts, all of our towers and everything like that. So we are good to go. Players can load in and have a fun time. So now that this is done, let's get a basic op board up and running, just for the sake of showing how to make an op board, and then we can move to getting it added to the server using PBO Manager. Okay, I'm now going to show you how I get the op board format. It's easy, it's lazy, you don't have to worry about it. If you have one op board, you have a format for all of your op boards. If you have someone else's op board, you have the format for everyone's op board. So here I have a pre-made mission that I did earlier this year, Operation Hell's Kitchen, and here's the op board that I have for it. I have a map picture here. It really helps if you put a picture of the map in the op board. In this case, this is a side op, and technically side ops don't even need an op board, but for the sake of education, I'm going to show you how to do an easy op board. This op board will not have a picture though, as it is just a side op. They don't usually have op boards, but this one does, but it will not get a picture. Now, in this case, I am going to get the format. I'm just going to go to here, file, make a copy. You can do this on anybody's op board. Copy of Operation Hell's Kitchen, make a copy, opens up in a new tab. Here we have copy, and you just get rid of that. We get rid of the name and we call it, just for purposes of test, and then you just go through. As I said, you can do this with any op board out there. Officially now, without changing any of the situation or anything like that, we just have Operation Test, and it's all pretty much basic. Now, breaking this down, the situation, this is just the basic overall situation for the mission. What we can do here is we can effectively copy paste in our case, copy paste the ChatGPT little scenario for this situation, but in this case, I'm not going to do it now for the sake of time. We would want to change the NATO to UNSC. That's pretty much all we would have to do for this situation here. The objective is, in this case, we will just put stop. That's not how you do that. Just stop the missile. For a little bit, if you want to throw in a little bit of like a lore context thing, we can just leave this, find out who's responsible, who's the paramilitary organization that's responsible for this. The enemy composition, we can either put a specific organization, we can put a specific unit. In the case of the URF, say if we were fighting the 55th URF Battalion. The location, this is what planet, or even just down to what region. In the case of the old Opboard Hell's Kitchen, this was taking place on the planet of Crystal. I'm going to leave that there just because why can't this also be on Crystal? Enemy activity in this case will be high because they're about to launch a missile, and the strength can be anything between low, medium, high, or just whatever information you want to give the players. So in this case, strength, I put C composition above, and it is unknown. So we know nothing about these guys, but we just know that their activity is medium. The friendly forces, this can just be left blank, but in this case, we don't really go anywhere without our Marine Expeditionary Battalion, or is it Brigade? I think it's Brigade. Either way, the 10th MEB doesn't really go anywhere without us, and we don't go anywhere without it, so it's usually with us. All this stuff doesn't get touched, so this has been just this hasn't changed in 3 years. Under materials and service, though, you can put, if it's a bigger operation, the supply for said operation. So whether or not how much assets aviation has, if they can get vehicles and stuff like that. As I said, this one doesn't get a picture. And this is a done op board. You can post this wherever you know. You can put this wherever you need to. Usually it is in the TAC Ops Center text channel, both pinging Bravo, Alpha companies, and VC497. And this is usually done if it's for a Thursday or Friday operation. We try and get them out no later than Wednesday, but you know, life catches up and sometimes it's a bit later. That's fine. So this op board for this side op is done. Now let's get to putting this on the server. So we're back on the server. We're getting this on. We're back on Eden. We're going to be getting this on the server. So what we need to do is we need to save it. We're going to top left corner scenario, save as. We want to save it to multiplayer missions just for organization purposes. Under here, you can see where you can name the operation. So in this case, our general format is operation so-and-so. In this case, it's just operation test based on to also match the op board. We want to binarize the scenario. You would only really want to do this if you were trying to troubleshoot things, but we haven't had to unbinarize a mission for quite a while, and if you don't, it makes the mission file huge. So for the sake of turning a few kilobyte mission into a megabyte mission, we are going to keep it binarized. So this is just operation test, and we're going to save. Now we're going to go to File Explorer to get this finalized. Okay, here we are on File Explorer. We are in Documents. We are in your Documents tab, and here you're going to find a file Arma 3-other profiles. You're going to click on your primary profile or the profile that you used to make the mission. Here you're going to have compositions, missions, MP missions, saves, users, etc., etc. You're going to be going to MP missions because that is the file that we saved the mission to. Here you can see all of your saved missions. Don't worry about the %20s. Those indicate spaces. The way that the game saves that information, it can't save spaces, so it replaces spaces with a %20. Don't worry about that. So in this case, here we have operation %20.malden. It is just a standard file folder. If you click in it, the only thing that is in there and the only thing that you're going to need in there in this case is just mission.sqm. That is the individual mission file with all of the binarized information on it. So what we want to do, by this point you have gotten PBO Manager from S3 mission references and you've installed it. What you want to do now is you right click it and you find the PBO Manager option, and you want to pack into a .pbo file, not the IFA, but the .pbo file. It does it almost instantly, and here you can see just added is a operation %20 test.malden. When it is inside of the PBO format, you can select it and rename it and actually remove the %20. If you're worried about that, it does show up when people join the mission. It still shows the %20, though it is a very minor thing. If you're OCD about it like me, do it. If but if you don't want to, you don't have to. But we do now have operation test.malden.pbo. If you're renaming a mission, do not get rid of anything after the first dot. So we can change operation test, but after this first dot right here, we cannot change anything, because that .malden is what tells the server in the game what map that mission is on. If you try and put up a mission and that doesn't have a .map information, then it will not be able to load the mission whatsoever. And you can see on these other missions like Operation Heavy Metal .altus, that is the mission, that is the map that it's on. This one is Juju_Sahara. That is the map that mission is on. So forth, so forth. So do be careful. Do not get rid of anything after the first dot. Don't get rid of the .malden. Don't get rid of the .pbo. What you can do now is you can select it, you can copy it, you can go to your Discord, and inside of S3 operations chat, you can just ping and ask for it to be put using. Can you put this mission up? In which you then just copy paste the mission PBO file inside of there. Don't worry, they're not big enough that that Discord won't be able to copy paste them over. Then someone with either main or side server access can download them, put them on the server for you. They'll let you know when it's up, in which then you can join the server, get into your Zeus slot, and be ready to go. That is the general gist of putting together a short mission. What I've shown you here, can be scaled up infinitely, and maybe even later we can get a video that is explaining the same process with scripts, or we can, you can infinitely scale up from here. Either if it's just scaling up to meet the standards of a main operation, or if it's just going infinitesimally up towards campaign status. What I've shown you here is the bare basics of working Eden in Arma 3 to the 105th standards. It's not a whole lot, and it's very simple. I hope this information helped you, and I can't wait to see the operations that you make.